You are not going to eat beef in the future. 100% guarantee it. We will not be raising cattle except for the uber rich. They will have their steak, but you will not. One of the people that is now being nominated to run the BLM, which is the Bureau of Land Management, this is the government owns millions of acres of this country. And in the center of the country, you will have cattle that are on government-owned land because the ranchers don't have enough grass themselves. My own ranch is surrounded by BLM land. I don't graze my cattle on it. I actually go and try to kill some of the weeds on BLM land because they don't care, and it will destroy my ranch if they don't take care of it. They won't, so I do. It's an out-of-control agency that shouldn't exist in the first place, and now the nominee is a nominee that argued for population control in their thesis, their graduate thesis, and also a 1 to 2 child policy like the Maoists in China, and she wants no public land being used for cattle grazing, which again will cripple our food supply. Somebody who knows a lot about this and has been on it from the beginning is Thomas Massie. He joins us now from Kentucky because there are some things that are pushing back on what we talked about last night. One of them is the Prime Act that you've been pushing for a while. Thomas, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. I was up till 5 a.m. in the Judiciary Committee last night, but glad to be on your show today. Glenn, you paint a pretty grim picture, but I want to tell you it's even more grim than what you've just described. There are most Americans don't know this, but they're seeing the price of meat go up in the supermarket, and occasionally they go and see shortages. And we saw massive shortages during COVID, and we've seen farmers who've had to euthanize, destroy their animals, in some cases with hogs, chip them up in wood chippers, okay?
Yes.
We can get into why you can't. There's no nursing homes for animals that go into the food supply.
Thomas, we have a problem right now. I am a rancher. I'm on my ranch up in Idaho where we're having a drought. There's no food because we can't grow anything. We haven't had rain in about a year, and the cattle and the horses here are beginning to show their ribs. They are. There's no food for them, and these farmers cannot afford food because there's a shortage of it. And so we are going to be killing cattle en masse soon.
And normally what you would do is you would turn them into food for people when you got in that situation. Yes. But here's the problem.
Right.
Four companies control 85% of the meat that's processed in the United States. One of those companies is completely owned by the Chinese. Another one of those companies is completely owned by the Brazilians. And the others are like multinational, public companies.
Yes, correct.
And they love the regulations that right now exist at the USDA because what they've done is they've been able to either buy up all of their smaller competitors who got anywhere close to competing with them, or put out of business the tiny guys, the mom and pop shops that have been sort of the basis for the local food movements across the country for hundreds of years. They put them out of business. And so what we need to do is we need to empower these small processors, because what's happening, Glenn, is people at the supermarket, they're probably paying about twice, maybe 50% more than they should have to pay for the meat, and the farmers are getting hosed because that oligopoly that exists in the middle that controls the movement of food from farmers to the fork, those people are just extracting extreme profits right now. In a competitive environment, that's fine, right? And I'm not a trust buster myself. I'm not saying the government needs to go in there and break these guys up. I'm saying the regulations we have right now, the big guys love it because at the end of the day, it's not enhancing food safety, and it's because it's putting the small guys out who are inherently safer and more accountable to the customer.
I talked to Governor Kristi Noem last night on my TV program about this. I know they are moving to reinforce their small meat processors. And so is Wyoming. Yesterday, the Governor Gordon in Wyoming, he issued a new meat processing grant. If you want to start a meat processing company, you get a grant from the state to do it. This is a national security issue.
It is. And I raise cattle like you. My wife just called to get us an appointment to have 4 beeves processed. They're backed up over a year. And this is a crisis because if this is at a small processor. If they back up any further, and this is already happening where you have the droughts, like you said, out there in the West.
Yep.
If you back up any further, there's nothing you can do with these animals, and the crisis is going to be shortages like we saw during COVID in the supermarket. But there is a solution. I have introduced a bill. We've got radical left Democrats. We've got far-right Republicans. We've got moderates on this bill in the House. It's called the Prime Act. We introduced it in the Senate as well. My colleague Rand Paul said, hey, I'll be the lead sponsor on your bill in the Senate. I said, no, there's a senator with a better name than you for this bill. His name is Angus King. And so Angus King
I know.
is the lead sponsor of the Prime Act in the Senate. And this bill is constitutionally redundant because all it says is as long as you're complying with state laws and you're not going across state lines, if you're a small processor, you can process meat for a customer who's in the same state as you, for a farmer that's in the same state as you, and this would be a revival of being able to reestablish that connective tissue between the farmer and the consumer, and it would be far safer than what we got now.
If you're living in a town that has a farmer's market, you need to support it. You need to support your local farmers. The answer to all of this is local, 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 and getting the government out of the way. By the way, you can support the Prime Act by emailing and calling your congressman and your senator. There is nothing more important. This is about the end of our food security. This is about not having control over what you eat and how it is grown and processed and how much it costs. You will not have beef if the left has their way in a very short period of time.
And
am I overstating that?
No, you are not. The system we've got now is cracking because it's so brittle, and four companies control 85% of it. But phone calls are really the best way to reach, and only make 3 phone calls because everybody's got 2 senators and 1 representative. Don't call Nancy Pelosi. I know you want to call her and ask her about her ice cream, but call your own representative and your 2 senators. Tell them this is critically important to your family. You should be able to decide what your family eats, and you want to support local farmers.
Yeah. Thank you so much. One more thing, Thomas. Are you familiar, by the way, we're talking to Congressman Thomas Massie. Are you familiar with the woman that is now being put up as the head of BLM land?
I am not, but it's a scary proposition, what I've heard from you.
Yeah. You need to look into this. This is a really dangerous person. She believes that cattle should not be able to graze on public land. That's insane.
Glenn, we had 40 to 60 million bison in North America before the settlers came here. That's approximately the same size as the beef herd right now. So I say that we are bovine flatulence neutral when somebody says, oh, the cattle are bad for the environment. Well, so you're telling me the bison were bad for the environment? So don't believe all this gobbledygook. And I think that would be horrible out west, because basically a lot of those states are colonies of the federal government because the federal government owns 80% of some of your states out there. In Kentucky, almost all the cattle are raised on private land, but it's a totally different situation. By the way, if you like grass-fed cattle, if you like grass-fed cattle, this is the most this is the greenest way to raise cattle.
I know it is. I know it is. Thank you very much, Thomas Massie, for being on the program. Again, that's the Prime Act. Call your congressman and call your senators. I cannot express in grave enough terms, we have a very short period of time to act on this. I also want to give you another outlet. It's usabeef.org. usabeef.org. Anyone that you know that has a friend that is a farmer, a rancher, anyone, if you like beef, if you want control of the food that you eat, if you want to make sure that the local farmer can continue to exist, and I'm not understating this or overstating this, please get involved. usabeef.org. Watch my special from last night. We're going to get into parts of it, but it is so critical that you watch this. This is national security, and the government will control what you eat, how you eat, where you get it from. We are in a very dangerous place right now.